Welcome to Audacity Works, a podcast inspired by and dedicated to the working artist, the creative entrepreneur, and generally, doing the damn thing. This exists on the premise that the world belongs to those who have the audacity to believe that their lives have value. This is for you. Welcome to Audacity Works. I am your host, Rachel Strickland, and this is episode number 120. Welcome to February. I haven't recorded in a while because I've been in Mexico with Jenny Tufts leading 2 full circle retreats at Sweet Retreats in Puerto Escondido. Have I recovered? No, I haven't. It takes me a long time to recover, and it's not even that it was that exhausting. I mean, it's kind of a dreamy workload actually, and getting to share it with Jenny makes it very sustainable. On the other hand, traveling is exhausting, especially when Delta keeps delaying your flights and you have to stay overnight in strange American cities and get the airline to pay for it. Pro tip, if you're ever in the Chicago airport and you see a woman in a red jacket who works for Delta, her name is Tasha, she'll have excellent eyeliner on, just be super nice to her because she saved my ass. There is more details about that in the Patreon, where I gave just a first-hand account of observations while traveling and a day in the life. It was actually my day off at Casa Chango during Sweet Retreats. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Patrons, go check it out. It's kind of cute. In other news, I have a guest episode coming up for you soon. I just got off the horn with Jen Crane, and we got to spend an hour together talking about how to choose a PT and what all those letters after their names actually mean, and dogs. We talked about dogs. It's coming up soon. You'll see it. If you have anyone else that you're like, you know what, you should definitely interview this person, tell me about it. Tell me about it. I also wanted to say thank you. I have requested reviews a couple of times on the podcast, and a lot of you have come to bat for me, and I have so many more reviews now, and oh my God, I really appreciate it. Like, just to know that someone will take the time to be like, this is good, you should listen to it. Thank you for that. Because I do enjoy doing this podcast. I've decided to keep it going for a while, and if we're going to be keeping on, I might as well grow as well. So the reviews are super helpful for that. Thank you if you have left one, and thank you in advance if you are moved to do so. Sharing them is super helpful also, particularly if you listen to one and you're like, you know who needs to hear this? That bitch. And then you send it to her or them or him, and yeah, that works like wonderfully. Love to be in a new ear. And on that note, I got to catch up on the Movement Maestros podcast today. I went to the gym in the morning like a freaking legend. I never do that, but I saw an afternoon full of calls. I knew I'd have to record a podcast as well to get it out by the release date. And like, if I don't work out in the morning, I'm not going to work out. And then it will be like many days of sitting on planes and in hotels and not lifting up heavy things and putting them down. So I should do that. And then I did. So no matter what happens today, I did that. And that's awesome. But anyway, because I was going to the gym, that's my time to listen to the Movement Maestros podcast, which is the only podcast I listen to with any regularity. And I never miss one. Or if I do, I catch up on them. And the last one that she put out is such a banger, and it's about whether or not you should share your political views on social media. And I'm going to link that in the show notes too. It is a fire episode. It's so inspiring, so real. And she's always both of those things, but this one in particular, like, I was so fired up and I wanted to come home and record this podcast right away. Like, damn, I've got like meetings to do and I got shit to do. I can't do that yet. So it was hard to wait, but here we are. So go give that a listen. And to that end, if you find a person who you respect and like enough to be like, I could follow you, That's not common. It's pretty rare, actually. So when you do find someone that you like following, then what a luxury. What a luxury. And the maestro, I quote her all the time. I'll continue quoting her. The woman is infinitely quotable, but I want to take this opportunity to follow her example. And I'm going to send her a text later on thanking her for giving me the opportunity to follow her example. I do recommend that you listen to the episode just because she says it so much more eloquently than I can try to summarize her words. But essentially, if you ask yourself, like, what's the hesitation and what's the resistance to sharing your political beliefs online for all to see? And I think it's pretty clear. It's a fear of conflict, right? You fear the trolls. And if we can just accept that that's valid and say, okay, but who benefits? Who benefits from your silence? And maybe, you think it's super obvious, as I did before I was listening to Maestro's episode, because I've always thought it was fairly obvious what I stood for. But just because I think it's fairly obvious doesn't mean that I shouldn't say it out loud. So I'm going to say it out loud. So for all posterity, I'm here to announce in black and white that I am pro-queer, pro-trans, pro-melanin, and feminist as fuck. Also, my feminism does not mean that I hate men. Hello, I am literally surrounded by them. There's 2 in my house right now. One of them I'm married, and I call him Manflesh. The other one is my dad. I can hear them talking right now. And when I rail against the patriarchy, I'm not saying it's men, because I think that men are victims of the patriarchy also. And if you're curious about that, why don't you just go out and ask it of an emotionally intelligent, well-adjusted, happy, and at peace with himself man next time you meet one. Oh, you haven't met so many of those? When the pattern is that pervasive, we have to assume this is a systemic issue. Yes, patriarchy benefits men, but it also poisons them and makes it so difficult for them to access their humanity. That's what I see. Also, I'm pro-choice. Abortion is not an evil word. It is a life-saving medical care. I've had 2 of them. I didn't want either one. I had both to save my life. I wished I didn't have to, but I did, because those were my choices. That will never happen to me again. We have taken measures to ensure that that won't happen again. And thank God that we have, because at this moment, in South Carolina and 4 other states, there is a bill proposed which would make anyone who gets an abortion, and in some cases suffers a miscarriage, something over which you have 0 control, that it can count as murder, and that person could be subject to the death penalty. I'm not making this up. The absolute tomfoolery that is happening right now is why I have come onto my beautiful, wonderful little podcast that I just love so much, and that I hope is such a comfort to you, and I hope it's an inspiration to you. And I don't want to talk about politics because it's all disgusting. But also I have to, because this is the reality that we're looking at. And if I can't at least speak up and say where I'm coming from and what I believe without making you have to go through mental gymnastics or infer or read between the lines, I just wanted to say it. Just to say it. That's something I can do today. I'm in no way a revolutionary. I don't think that I am a figurehead to follow in the revolution. I'm too ill-informed. And I don't consider myself a boots on the ground kind of person. But I have friends that are, and when you have someone that you can follow follow them. One such friend is Jen Crane, who I just got off the call with, and a few days ago I was still in Mexico, and she was posting about the 5 Calls app. I will put a link to that in the show notes, which makes it super, super easy for American citizens to call your representatives or, learn who they are. And no shame, that is not shade. That it's supposed to be hard for you to know these things. It's supposed to be confusing. It's meant to be overwhelming. And like this clever little app just makes it really easy to take really simple action. They say 5 calls in 5 minutes, and it really is that simple. And then guess what? You don't sit around and wallow in the awfulness all day. You move the fuck on with your life. You finish your morning pages. You go for a walk. You make some fucking art. You serve the people that you serve. And you can know that you did something today. I never would have thought of that, but my friends did, and I can follow them. I think there's lots of ways in which I am a good leader. Not always. We can't be all things. And I'm grateful to be able to follow when I can. It really reminds me of that quote from Game of Thrones between Commander Mormont of the Night's Watch and Jon Snow. And Jon Snow was being a little bitch about one thing or another, and the commander takes him outside and gets all in his face, and he's like, "You want to command someday? You want to lead?" And Jon Snow nods, and then he says, "Then learn to follow." Because that's something that unfit leaders have in common. They don't know how to follow. They couldn't conceive of following. Does that sound like anyone you know? So that's what I came on here to say today. Just to say out loud in black and white, I am pro-trans, pro-queer, pro-melanin, feminist as fuck, pro-choice. You probably knew all of that already. But I hope that it gives you comfort to hear it from me. We will be back to our regularly scheduled programming next week with discussions of art and creative practice and creative entrepreneurship and how to do the damn thing and take control of your life. Also, this is part of that. And it's a part that I can't and won't ignore. We really are all in this together. And the reason that I stay talking about how to overcome your gremlins, or at least make peace with them, how to negotiate with them, how to do the things that you want to do, is because your life has value. The things you want to make have value. And I don't even care if I like them or not, because it's not about my personal taste. Whether or not I like the art that you make is completely irrelevant. I could hate the art that you make, and I would still fight to the teeth to help you make it. Because it's important. Your voice is important. And we won't ever have it through any other human being, ever. It has to be you. So I do think that this is all connected, and I think it's connected with Maestro's message about saying it and saying things that can be divisive on social media, not to start a fight, because that's a bunch of bullshit, but just to say what you mean with your whole chest. I know I have observed, and you probably have too, that a creator who's posting stuff on social media, and it's really palatable and easy to digest, and it's nice when it comes up on your feed, but you're like, okay. But when things really start getting juicy is when that creator starts having opinions and letting their salty side out. Again, not to start conflict, because that's not the point. The point is just to have an opinion and not to be sitting on a fence all day. Because sitting on a fence is not inspiring. And if what you are trying to do with your art, with your posts, is to convey an emotion or an experience or tell a story, then you need to be telling that story with your whole chest. And honestly, the beautiful thing about social media is that that block button is so easy to find. It is so easy. Don't feed the trolls. Don't ever feed the trolls. But your opinions and your tastes are what makes your flavor have flavor. And this is part of my flavor. This is a little bit of a shorter episode today. I'm going to blame this completely on just still lagging from travel. It's 5:20 on the 11th. Like, I'm recording this the evening before, and I don't usually do that. And it's just because I haven't had time to catch up from my journeying. So forgive me for a few minutes shaved off. We will be back in action. Tiny updates. It is time, if you have been eyeing the Audacity project, to get your shit together as an artist and to go after more and better and more fulfilling work, better paid work, or just to participate in your culture in an intentional way and stop hiding in the sidelines. That program is launching super soon, and the waitlist is the absolute best place to be if you want to know about it. You get all kinds of perks from being on the waitlist. So I'll put that link in the show notes as well. And there is still 2 places left for Creatrix. There's really kind of only 1 because someone's already applied, but I'm going to say 2 until it's made official. I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well if you want to come swim in the tidal creek with me and learn some witchcraft in May of this year. That is the opportunity to do that. And if I got the opportunity to work with you in Mexico this year, thank you. Thank you for being so receptive and for receiving what Jenny and I had to give you. If you have requests for future episodes, you can reach me always on Instagram at Rachel Strickland Creative or on Patreon at Rachel Strickland Creative. This podcast is powered by Patreon. So I got to give a shout out to those precious Inner Sanctum souls for believing in me, for standing with me. It means so much to me to have you there. Thank you so much. Until next week, my friends, say it with your whole chest and don't go back to sleep.